Happy Friday again, Achieve Virtual Education Academy teachers. Hope all is going well for you for this week. I hope you had a nice, relaxing holiday weekend and sprungboard into a very active week with not only your online kids, but probably in your traditional setting if that's where you're at as well. To get started, let's make sure you're making your calls. You're getting a lot of new students. Every semester we kind of transition. Almost half of our students are replaced, not quite, but almost half. So if you haven't started making your calls, please be sure to start doing that. I see a lot of email blasts, but not a lot of phone calls being reported in Genius. I know some of you are doing that without recording them, but it does help to kind of, when you have that conversation for our office, to kind of know at least some of the important ones. So be sure to follow up. It's always good to kind of introduce yourself and kind of put you in the mind of the student, and it's a great way to kind of connect and hopefully get them hooked and started. I've talked to quite a few already just on confusion of getting started. So be sure, again, make those calls. It's a great time to introduce your pacing guides and those kinds of things as well. Speaking of pacing guides, be sure when you're sending out your email blasts and having those conversations. I just had a conversation Thursday morning with a student who kind of wanted to know, well, how many assignments do I need to be doing each day, or what am I doing? And so I saw a pacing email from a teacher. It wasn't real specific as to how many you should be doing a day, but it was more about you should have this many done by now, which is a great start, but it's also a good idea to kind of maybe follow up with either a calendar or kind of, hey, if you're doing 5 assignments a week, one each day, you're going to finish by April, and then you'll have time to study and take your final exam in May, which is well before the end of our semester, which is May 27th. So even if it's just as simple as taking the number of assignments divided by the dates, number of days they have or school days, that can really be beneficial for the student. Remember, they don't really have that calendar outlined unless you've sent it to them in My Big Campus. It's hard for them to see that in an organized manner. So it's going to be much easier if you kind of figure it out and modify it depending on the week they get enrolled into, or by the end of January. Kind of send out a blast of, if you're doing this many assignments each week, you're going to finish in plenty of time. So please make sure you're doing that. It is helpful. It does give the students a goal. Otherwise, what they see in their schoolwork folder is 300 assignments, but that's for all their classes, and that can be certainly overwhelming. So again, an individual pacing guide for your class would be very beneficial. So please take care of that and get that information into your students and or parents' hands. Spring semester challenge. Our graduation rate did drop. It's going to fluctuate probably a little bit every year just because of the kind of population we get, depending on how many seniors we get enrolled and how well they do to push towards graduation. Every year I'm seeing an increase in actual adults, so whether they count in the cohort or not can be kind of argued with the DOE, but at this point it did drop almost 30%, which is a hit for the district. So of course we want to monitor that and see what we can do to push them. So if you have seniors who are gearing up for graduation, let's make sure we give them a good welcome and a push and see what we can do to help them stay motivated to complete for their goal of graduation. So that would be my challenge for everyone this semester. Missing and non-responsive students, just like last semester, please make sure you're notifying me of those. January might be a little early. If you've got a student that was maybe unresponsive first semester and 3 weeks in now of January is unresponsive too and not really working, I don't mind if you send me those names, but you might wait until we get into February once we close enrollment and really do have everyone enrolled that's going to be enrolled. That would be helpful, and we'll look to either withdraw them based on their needs, or if we have to go through the missing process if they're under 18, or find out how we can maybe help them be more successful. I'd look for it to be about half that we can potentially save, and the other half we kind of have to move on from. But make sure you're sending those to me. That's one of my personal goals, is to get involved in that process more and pull Claudia out of it, and I'll just communicate with her as I have different findings. As we get into March and April, late February, I'm going to want to know those who, everybody, you might have somebody that everyone starts in your class, but then they kind of disappear on you, and I'll want those names then. So obviously monitor your kids if they've started and kind of done one assignment, but then disappear. Certainly get me those names as we get further into the semester, so we can, again, this is a continuous process, and if they're just going to fail and be counting against our data, we need to look at ways to either move on from them or better support them. Professional development, Please remember, there is no meeting this month, well, this month we've already had, but in February and March. That is because the assignment is going to be assigned to you individually by Michelle and or Scott, and it will cover your classes that you teach online for us. It may only be one semester of it, not both if you teach a full year course, but the idea will be that you're kind of looking through it, trying to search for errors and fix them, not only more familiarizing yourself with its learning and practicing, but also making sure the course is as good as it can be before we fire up for summer. April traditionally is kind of our celebrations of what we've done throughout the year. This year it's probably going to be a final push about how to operate in its learning, because in May we'll probably begin taking summer school enrollments. We'll have our summer school training meeting, which will also be a follow-up to April's with the It's Learning. And summer school will be in It's Learning and probably a new information system, Skyward. So all that moving is coming down the chute. So be aware and be prepared. It'll be light for March and February, just because you'll be looking at a class that you should already know. It may look a little different in the new setting, but be sure to follow up and stay up on that, because obviously training for the new information system will be coming as well. Some of you are already comfortable with it as you're using it at Ben Davis High School or maybe your home district, but those using others like Power School and that kind of thing, Skyward you'll be set up in there as well, and it's going to look and feel a little different. And speaking of Scott, in case you didn't attend the January professional development meeting, we have kind of grown the Blended Learning Initiative in the MSD of Wayne Township Schools, which has given rise to the need for additional support in the role of kind of what Michelle's been doing. So Michelle's position has changed. She's now the director of Blended and Virtual Learning, and she will kind of oversee much of what Scott's doing. Scott will slowly get implemented more into what she's been doing. So initially, this first semester, Mr. Morrow will be working with Michelle to transition content in classes so that February and March PD you're able to take care of, and so we're ready to go for summer school. So we'll have all that content and It's Learning by the time summer school is up and running. But as that need lessons, he'll become more of a professional developer for the secondary role and Achieve Virtual. So he's not replacing Michelle, it's an addition to Michelle. Michelle's role will probably change slightly over time, and Scott you'll start to see him do more and more of what she's been doing as that evolves, but at least in the immediate future they'll both be working with Achieve. So welcome Mr. Scott Morrow. He joins us from Ben Davis High School, where he's a economics and macroeconomics teacher, so he'll be missed there, I'm sure, but much to our gain. So thank you and welcome. The big push, enrollment and beyond. We'll close enrollment this next week for Achieve is because the student count day is February 1st, and frankly we're just not going to have any more room probably. We have about 40 students that are active that need placed. I guess I did find out about 8 of those graduated in December, so it's actually only about 32, and maybe about 10 of those honestly are from fall semester that didn't earn any credits that we're waiting to hear back from, and we'll start the missing or withdrawal process as they either turn 18 or if we get no response from them. So the number's probably a little less than that, but currently if I leave it at 40, we're sitting at 191 students. Maybe take 20 of those off, we're at 171, but we still got 30 to go. So we're going to be around the 200 mark or a little over. So you're going to feel the stretch a little bit. Now we know not all students will work, but the spring semester, remember, is a little more productive for our students than the fall. So I do look for more to stick around. So certainly if you're interested in squeezing in a few more students, I could certainly use it. If not, there's some content areas I'll probably need to fire up or look for another teacher for. I've got some on the back burner, but others I may get tight in. So just kind of be aware of that and shoot me a quick note if you're willing to take a few more this semester, at least initially, to kind of see who's going to work and go from there. Students are still coming in for another week. We've got 30 applications, like I mentioned in the first paragraph, that are still sitting there, and every day we get anywhere between 3 to 5 more that want in full time. Some of those we don't end up hearing back from, so you would think, well, man, it just keeps exploding, and it does kind of, but some of those we reach out to find out their plans, and then they kind of disappear, so we decline those applications after a week. But there's still 13 that they're recent, they're right now, and they're wanting in, and as long as we get their records, we'll be able to place them here within the next week. So this next week, your rosters are kind of feel bloated a little bit. That's okay. That's a great problem to have. But for those of you that don't want any more, I may need to start looking for other options in your content area. So anyways, with that being said, we've got a big push till kind of our next 3-day weekend, and certainly before our next break. So at the end of one more week of January, get your game face on and let's get after them. Have a great weekend, great next week. Enjoy championship football if you're into that, and look forward to talking with all of you guys again next week.